What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Rise Up Rich podcast. Got a guest in the house today, and I'm super excited. It's a good friend of mine, a client of mine as well. This guy's been making some amazing leaps in his life. He's got an amazing story of having a dream, chasing the dream, getting shot down, coming back full circle to understanding his passion and what it really takes to become successful, not just like in financial success. We're talking about success in all areas of life, and I'm super happy to have this guy on the podcast because I know he's going to deliver amazing value because he's just got such an amazing story. So my good friend, musician, contractor, family man, church head of the church band. I don't know what that, I said that wrong, but this guy's got it all. So Brian Jacques, thanks for being on the podcast, man. I think you're going to deliver a ton of value to everyone today.
Thank you very much, Dave. I'm super happy to be here, buddy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So let's just kick it off. And I think you have a really cool story because of this one fact and like what we've been working on together is you had this dream of becoming like a rock star, right? And you were working it. Like you were working all the bars, you were recording songs, you had the band. I know there's other musicians that listen to this podcast. I know they've had this same struggle. So you push, and then nothing. It's like it kind of goes flat. And man, I've experienced that in my coaching program. I was just having a meeting with my assistant and my social media coordinator this morning about we have this product out right now, and it's like we thought it was going to be this big thing, and it's like just flopped, right? And then I feel the energy like just getting sucked out of me, but the thing is, because I was able to do the work and I understand like, no, this is just a roadblock. This is just a barrier. Let me learn what's going on. Let me learn what's happening inside and learn how to push past it. And you have kind of now come full circle, right? So why don't you just tell us a little bit about that story, about your story, and, transition into what has changed now.
All right. Well, first thing you said when it kind of rung a bell in my head was, being a musician. I think this applies for anybody trying to do anything, especially things that are creative. We get these ideas of what it should look like, right? These outcomes, something that we've talked about in our coaching session, right? Being attached to the outcomes. So, just kind of to go back, it was like I had a blueprint constantly in my mind, year after year, that was being let down because I thought of the way I would think of how my career should look at that time, how it was supposed to look. And I was also basing this off of perceptions I would get out of like YouTube, music videos, the radio, right? The things that music stars push, they need to have this certain sort of envelope, this package that they deliver their music career in. Well, sometimes it leaves other artists and musicians with sort of a faulty perception of what the career should look like itself, right? So this is more recent. This is skipping way forward in my struggles and my career is that you have to let go of the constant outcome, right? And the constant objective of what the goal is. Now, the goal is huge, right? You're trying to push and you're trying to have big dreams, but it's always bringing it back to the moment, bringing it present and enjoying the process of that, right? Enjoy 100%. The process.
And I think that's what happens for so many people is they get so tied to the outcome. And like hell, like, I mean, as much work as I've done, it just happened to me still. Like when I spent 3 months building this landing page and these ads and doing all this thing. And then I got so attached to like, this is going to work. And then when it doesn't, it can be so debilitating. And I think that's what you experienced early on in your music career. It's like because when you're in the moment of creating a song or creating a record, it's like the energy's high and you're like, everyone's going to love this. And then you go to release it and it's like you sell 10 CDs, right? Yeah. Like, and it's debilitating. And if you haven't done the inner work to understand what is really going on, that energy drain, that energy suck can completely shut you down.
Yeah, and you keep mentioning energy, right? Yeah. And that energy sucks from being, I failed at it, right? So then the energy goes away because you're now in the failure seat. Mm-hmm. If you were in the seat of success, you continue to drive forward, right? You're hitting the gas pedal further. So these outcomes and these exact blueprints of what it should look like, you really need to keep that in check. For example, I always I used to, I'm working on this now. It's still not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect in our process. But I used to think that I was a failure always along the way. Everything was always a failure. And I would have these like high moments, be like, oh, we sold out such and such bar. I even had some experiences where I was crowd surfing, playing a guitar solo across a crowd of people. Yeah. Like, it really doesn't get any higher than that. Mm-hmm. If you think about that, like, you have hundreds of people singing along. I'm jumping off stage. People are catching me. And now I'm, you know what I mean? I'm doing music and it keeps going, right? To me, it's like, and at that time, I remember getting off stage that day and I was just totally worried about nothing that was in that present moment. I was still a failure. The next show, the next night, I was thinking about things that were 5 years away. I was thinking about things, how it didn't look exactly in the past or the money, right? All of the negative stuff. Had I been in that moment and connected to the success of that, like really like, wow, look what just happened, right? And then just enjoy that, right? I would have stayed in the seat of success, right? So I would continue to hit the gas. So, but I immediately put myself back in the seat of failure. And when you're in that seat, you're a lot more fearful. You're a lot more cautious. You stop a lot more, right? You don't take advantage of the little successes along the way. I did have a lot more garbage going on in my life, which we'll talk about more, which was also clouding that. So I do forgive myself in the past because I was looking back, I'm like, you didn't really know any better. Like, you were young, you know what I mean? Right. You couldn't really navigate through that. I was in the fog of war, basically, right?
Yeah, and I think there's two things that I think that you highlighted there. One is that you were projecting into the future, right? And when we project into the future, that's what sucks all of our joy, right? It's because we're not living in the present moment. You're freaking crowd surfing and having the time of your life and enjoying the process. But as soon as you get off stage, you're like, what's next? And you never took the time to actually enjoy what was going on. You got connected to the outcome and you forgot about loving the process, right? So for sure, I think that's something that needs to be highlighted. And I loved what you said too about like, when you're in the present moment, you're connecting to the win, the victory. If you're projecting in the future, it's like, if the goal is to be a rock star and play in a stadium, you're not there, so you're a failure. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I think that's 100% huge. Now, the stuff that you and I have been working on together is about where did this failure mentality begin in your life, and like trying to go back and understand why you keep going to like this failure mindset, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy. And we don't have to dig into that here. I mean, this doesn't have to be this deep, kind of like coaching. I can go deep. Right. But it's like, but I think though, understanding where that belief system began is a part of learning how to become free of it. You know,
that's 100%. Yeah, you just summed it up there.
Yeah,
before we got started. Yeah,
right. So and then that belief system, and this was for me too, man. Like that belief system of I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, no one wants to be my friend, whatever the fuck it is. Like like for me, it turned into like there's like a root of it, but it turned into addiction issues, and I know that that's something that you suffered with as well. Was you know, when we're using drugs, alcohol, eating too much, whatever the fuck it is. We're trying to not feel something, right? And we're using drugs or alcohol to feel better, right? Or food, or sugar, or caffeine, or whatever the fuck it is, right? Yeah. So sex. So like, why don't you take us down like the road of like the path of like the addiction issues that you went through and how you got through it? I think is the most important part.
Yeah. So obviously, just for the record, addiction to anything is just terrible for your life, right? So, I mean, I think...
let me interrupt you. Addiction to anything, it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol. Like that's right. It could be fucking social media. It could be television. It could be gambling. It could be masturbating. Whatever the hell it is, it could be anything.
It could be emotional too. It could be addictions to anger. It could be addictions to sadness. People escape in those things too, right? So there's such an array of addictions in our human habitual behaviors that it's easy to be. I mean, you can be addicted to shoe shopping, right? Like just shopping.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's like when you hear addiction, and immediately everyone's brain goes to drugs and alcohol. But like addiction, like this is an opportunity for you if you're listening, is like to ask yourself, you know, what am I addicted to? What am I relying on to not feel a certain way?
Yeah.
Right. And like for me, alcohol was twofold. It was when I feel like shit, I want to drink. When I feel great, I want to drink.
Right,
It was both, right? So it's like it was what I came to the big realization for me with alcohol was that it was allowing me to be who I truly was, right? It's like it allowed me to knock all those walls down, right? And it's like when I was drinking alcohol, I was the life of the party. I was like, everyone wanted to be around me. Everyone wanted to be my friend. When I wasn't drinking alcohol, I was the most miserable motherfucker on earth. And the reason I was that miserable motherfucker was because of all the shit that happened to me in my life put me into the shell. I drank alcohol, I was out of the shell, right? But as we know, obviously, using any form of addiction, any substance, anything outside of yourself to become free of that is just not the way to go, right? So what do you think it was for you that allowed you to come to this awareness that like, oh, this is not working what I'm doing here? Like it could have just been like trauma. I'm assuming like, yeah, like.
Oh, you mean the realization point was
like when was it
not
like
working?
I gotta make a change.
Yeah, and I mean, my 15-year-old self would have said, don't do that.
Yeah.
My little 15-year-old self had more instincts than my 25-year-old self, right? So I knew this stuff, and I think a lot of us know that when we go back to our 9-year-old program, that we know the answers, right? So that's when we keep it simple. Anyways, fast forwarding now, the answers were already in me. Along the way, though, I try things, right? Curious about things. But fast forward now to when I realized it was a big failure, which is 4.5 years ago. I'm clean now. The addiction was a problem and this isn't for everybody, but this is what it took for me. I had to lose everything.
Yeah.
Bottom. So there was rock bottom, right? I wish that I could have seen it earlier. You know what I mean? I wish I could have seen the signs earlier. I wish that I could have made changes without my back being pinned completely against the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm talking pinned completely against the wall. I lost my marriage temporarily. I lost access to my kids temporarily. You know what I mean? I was living out of my car, lying to myself still, doing drugs, using alcohol, saying, on my phone with my mom, whoever, and be like, this ain't happening. She's lying, whatever, right? I was totally in disbelief, right? Yeah. So just to paint a picture of how bad it had to get for me to finally, and I remember that moment when I was like, fine. You know what I mean? It was actually the second or third time in my life that I was trying to quit my addictions. Because I could make it work for me, right? I could be at work and use, and then it would help my night, right? Because I was on the midnight shift. It was kind of miserable. So I would use to kind of like get through that, or like you said, escapism, right? It kind of takes us out of our reality, helps us get through. But it's a phony tool, right? Yeah. Our addictions. But anyways, I had to be completely back against the wall for myself to make the change. And a lot of people do get that point when they're like, there is no other option here. Yeah. It's either jails, institutions, and death, or it's going to be this new way to live.
Yeah, and I mean, fuck, man, that's the power of rock bottom, like that's why, Dr. David Hawkins, like when he said to like addiction, he's like, what's the best thing you can do to help an alcoholic? He's like, give him a case of beer, right? And basically what he's saying is the faster they get to rock bottom, the faster they're going to make the change that is necessary. So, I mean, I think part of my mission is to not have to let people get to rock bottom, and I was actually a person that I think I didn't really fully hit rock bottom. I was close. I was real close. Like I was $350,000 in debt. I had multiple failing businesses.
That's a bottom.
Yeah, it's bottom. Like, but I mean, I was still functioning. I was still, I was making the shifts that I needed to. It's like, I could have probably went on, but I was just like, this isn't working. Like what I'm doing is just not working. And one of the big things, the big realizations that I started coming to is like, I just started the process of quitting, right? Like that's what it was for me. Like I didn't go to AA. I didn't do anything. I didn't go to rehab. I started saying, okay, I'm only going to drink on weekends. I'm only going to drink on Sunday. So I had this little saying that I tried every variation of moderation, right? And none of it worked. Yeah. So then what I started doing was I started doing this thing called dry January, where I just didn't drink for the whole month of January, right? And that is when something sparked inside of me, because I would get more done in that month than I would in the entire year, right? Because of like alcohol was just a block to my success, right? So once I'm like, oh my God, for me, this is what it was. I'm like, if I need to stop drinking in order to get to the level of success I wanted to. It wasn't until later, after I quit, I made the decision to quit, I started putting everything together, right? I was like, I was using alcohol to be this guy, right? So how do I become this guy, my true self, without the use of alcohol? So that's what I went on a journey of like 10 years to like try and discover, how could I be who I was as a 5-year-old, which was this outgoing, fun-loving, loved everybody, was a performer, wanted to be in front of people, wanted to be around people. Like, how can I become that person again without having to add anything out there? Like, that's what addiction is. It's addition. You're looking to add something outside of yourself in order to feel like your true self. And who's your true self? It's like who you were when you were truly born,
Right.
Before you took on all the bullshit, the programs, the belief systems that prevented you from being that person.
And let me add, so you're talking about addition, right?
Yeah.
And just because I've been running a construction business now and doing music again in my life differently, I also have a marriage. I got a family. So this is a lot for anyone to juggle successfully, right? And then it's all going good right now. But one of the main things that came into that equation was streamlining and efficiency and cleanness, right? So when you said addition, right, it made me just go back, and it just irks me to think anytime I'm adding something to my life or my process I don't need to, it's not streamlined, it's not clean, it's not efficient. So for anybody who's thinking about, I think I can still manage my addiction, right? I can still, it's working for me. It's not helping you. Like, it's literally, it's costing you $10 more a day at the store. It's an extra. You're planning your day around it. You know what I mean? You're starting to lie about it. It's like it's a disease, right? That's why they refer it to it as a disease. It creeps in. It's draining your resources more than it's being effective as that tool for you to become yourself. It's more draining than that when you weigh it. So.
Yeah, and the one thing I do want to push back on you here a little bit, I don't want to get into a back and forth, but I know that one thing big on AA, CA, whatever it is or NA, is like that alcohol, that addiction is a disease. Okay. That's the one thing that I push back on.
I'll push back on, on you.
Yeah. And I know why they do it. Right. Because they want you to come to the realization that this is outside of your control, right? It's a disease. Like, it's outside of your control. So it's like, okay, I need help from a higher power to overcome this disease, right? So I think that's what it is what the tool is. They're saying it's a disease. That's why.
Right. So they're using the tool as the disease because any sort of, what basically classifies it as a disease is that because when you don't provide maintenance to the disease, is that the disease is going to creep back in. Just like, you could picture like a cancer, or you can picture anything that you have to give maintenance to it. Yeah. It's going to eventually make its way back around. So if anyone is staying successful off of their addiction to shoe shopping, gambling, food, alcohol, drugs, if they are successful, they are using a degree of maintenance. Maybe they found connection at a church. Maybe they become successful in their calling in their life, and that's their maintenance, right? But without that continued maintenance or attention to it, or just awareness, then you have no front. You have no front line doing any work, right? So I
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
What I disagree with is that it's like this disease that's out there, and it's waiting to come and get you, like, did you get caught? Did you catch alcoholism? It's like, fuck no, you didn't catch it.
No, I think that's a misconception too. Like, if you spent like 3 or 4 years inside of a 12-step recovery program and locked in with good guys who are following those programs, I think those people would be, because at first I was like, how is this a disease too? And it took me a while to catch sort of the mantra or the vibe or what they're trying to say. But it's definitely not something that you catch. No. So that's where that word...
Yeah, and that's why I don't like the word disease.
And,
I mean, I didn't even...
Well, can I just go a little bit more? That's why as the further I go in 12 steps of recovery, and then I get with the right guys, the right... sort of the right folks, and these guys have become huge in my life too. we start to use other words.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're not using disease anymore.
Yeah.
We do, but we also call it the illness. We call it the enemy.
Yeah.
You know, and then some of the Jesus followers in these spiritual programs will call it this is the devil.
Yeah. Right.
So it's definitely the dark side, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. See, like this is
which I like using those. I love calling it the enemy because that's what it is, right?
I mean, I don't know. I'm like, because this is what it was for me. Like, and this is why I push back. Is like, you know, for me, like when you say the disease, in my mind, what I think is like I'm passing the blame. Someone says, you know, I was just talking with a potential client, and he's like, oh yeah, when my depression kicks in, right? And it's like, what is that allowing you to do? It's just allowing you to pass the blame, right? Oh, it's my depression. That's why I can't get out of bed for 3 days, right? You know, and it's like, you know, there's genetics and there's epigenetics, okay? Genetics, there's only 5% of illnesses that are actually genetic, meaning, you know, you have a predisposition to get breast cancer and you're going to get it, but it's usually usually diabetes, like type 1 diabetes. These are things that are like genetic. You're born with it. Autism, these kinds of things. Genetic, what do you call it? Wow, I can't think of the word while I'm listening here. Mutations, you know, and you have this, right? 95% of diseases are epigenetic based, meaning if genetics are the deck of cards you're dealt, epigenetics is how you play those cards. Okay. So in that, what I think is like, I am the one that has the ability to take control over this because I need to fix what's going on. Right?
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't want to pass the blame to a disease, right? I want to take responsibility.
Well, I'm just saying you are saying what they tell you. They're saying it's not the disease's fault. It's all on you. You're taking ownership right now. But I can see how it makes you think that at first. Yeah.
Right. So I just don't want to pass that blame. But I do believe this. And this is not by any means me ripping on AA because I think it's one of the most amazing programs. I've never even been. I've actually been to an AA meeting with someone that was going through the program, and there's like you can invite your friends to come or whatever. Yeah. And I did that, and I was dumbfounded by like just you walk through that door, man, and the energy is like, you know, it's unbelievable. It's love.
There's love going on.
You nailed it, right? Yeah. Like you walk through the door and it's just pure love and compassion. You can get up on that stage and say, I fucking backed my car over my kid's bike. I fucking went to work drunk and pissed all over myself. And they were like, yeah, welcome. You know, like we love you. Like man, where can you go and do that without being judged? You know, I mean, like, I think there's probably room for like developing like a spiritual group of people like that where you can just come and pour your heart out and people are like, you know what? No big deal. We love you, man. Like tomorrow's another day. Like take a day. Like all that shit they say. So the one thing I do love about these programs is that it starts with surrender, right? Like step one is like, I'm powerless. I think they say to this disease, but I'm powerless to my addiction. No, that's what they say. I'm powerless to my addiction. You know, I've basically accepted that I can't control it. I don't know if that's step one. I always fuck it up, but basically it's a moment of surrender, being like, I can't do it on my own. God, whatever, creator, universe, energy, whatever your beliefs is, the group. Yeah, I need help. Yeah, and that is essentially what I came to the point where I was like, this. What I'm doing, drinking, doing all this stuff is just like, it's not serving me. I haven't been able to figure it out. I tried every variation of moderation, right? And so because of that, it's like, I need help. And then guess what? The fucking help came. It came to me in a million different ways, right? And that's what I love about surrender. It's like, you're just saying, I need help. Now, here's the thing that I think for listeners is like, you know, you can use this process for anything. You know, it's like, if you want to make more money, surrender it over to God. Like, just stop thinking about money. There's a saying, is like, if you want to make more money, stop thinking about money, right? And just surrender it over to God and say, God, if I'm meant to make money, bring it into my life. And you'll be amazed as the opportunities that start presenting themselves in front of you, right? So I think like that moment of surrender. So that's what I was trying to get to here is like, where was that moment for you? Like that moment of like, I need help. Like when did you feel it? Like I know you're living in your car and like I know that, but there was a moment when you like said, I need to take responsibility and I need help to do this.
You know what? And I think that's where I'm going to kind of take what you're saying and then kind of, this is how it worked for me. Maybe someone out there, it's a moment.
Okay, yeah.
For me, the process of surrender, which is basically saying, I can't do this alone. I don't want to do it alone anymore. I need help. Yeah. I want to have, the group. I want to have a higher power, right? That moment is obviously when life changes for the better, right? Because we become connected and we start to flow. We get everyone else's information. We get help. We're not relying on ourselves anymore.
Love it.
That moment for me is, I think, going to be a continual process for the rest of my life.
Okay.
For me, it's like, because I know I can't stay clean on yesterday's shower. You know what I mean? So for me, every morning, every day, I have to resurrender. And when I don't, worst day ever. If I'm forgetting to resurrender, I mean, it could be, I could wait till lunch. And it's not so much like where I have to get on like my knees and say a prayer, although I do love that idea, right? Because it's habitual. But it's just in my actions. Like, say things aren't going perfectly at home. My kids are, irritating me, right? Or the marriage is like, it's bothersome. I can choose to surrender without even saying anything in the back of my head and be like, this is the way it is right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's a moment of surrender.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe my finances don't look perfect, but they will, right? That's a moment of surrender. I'm so grateful that I live in Canada, right? All that, just that gratitude, right? So for me, I can't say there was a specific moment where I was like, okay, I surrendered and now it worked. Because that moment was so flippy floppy for me. Because when I went into, thank God I found the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous anyways. Yeah. I went into this program and they were like, oh, okay, part of the program is we're going to pray. You know what I mean? Do like the serenity prayer and you're going to have a higher power now. And I'm just like, I don't believe in this. Yeah. Look at my life. How could I possibly believe there's a God, there's a higher power? And then I'd get that little glimmer of hope, right? I need to see something, right? Something good would happen. I'd be like, okay, you know what? There's something here. And then all of a sudden something bad would happen and be like, there's something not here, right? So for me, it was a flip-flop and I had to build that muscle. So there's like a muscle of faith. There's a shelter of faith that I live in now where I can say today, something bad can happen when I leave here and I'm still going to continue on and I'm still going to be okay. In that time during my surrender, it was futile. If something bad were to happen to anybody in my family or something, it would have sent me off the rails, right? Because I just didn't have that muscle built yet. So I think it's a process, and I don't think it's ever going to stop.
Yeah, no, and that's where I believe like spiritual growth is that this is going on forever for me, until I reach enlightenment, which is like, enlightenment is like making $100 billion, let's say, meaning it's such a huge goal.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That I'm just going to keep pursuing it for my entire life, right? I'm just going to continue to move towards feeling the power that I feel when I make one little shift, and like, it's so powerful and so game changing that it's like I just want to keep experiencing it, right? I want to keep like making that shift. So that's what it is for me. It's like I think you're the same as you. It's like this is an ongoing thing. Like I'm forever going to be getting coached, going to programs, doing retreats, getting closer as I can to allness, to God, to whatever. And I think a lot of people. We probably should have said this in the beginning because we've really been using the God word, but a lot of people
dropping the G word today. Here we go. So we get down with God.
Yeah. So a lot of people will immediately dismiss anything that they hear that has the word God, and that's why I don't even like using the word God, right? So the big thing for me is it's like just be open-minded. That's the first thing I tell my clients is like when you sit across from me in that chair
right now,
it's like when you sit across in the chair, just forget you know anything. Right? And just be open and willing to accept the information. So this is the same for people listening to this podcast. It's like, just because you hear the word God doesn't mean you turn this podcast up. We're probably too late. They probably already did. Yeah. But, you could be really closing the door to hearing one piece of information that could completely transform your life.
Yeah. And here, exactly. And I love how you touched on people closing the door. Oh, they said God, I'm out, right? Yeah. Two things I want to say about that. That comes from people being hurt, right? People are hurt. Their families were hurt by people in churches, right? Yeah. Like God and church was perfect till they put human beings in it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Everything in the world was perfect till human beings got it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's something to remember. But
also
yeah,
people are hurt by God because they've lost people close to them. They've seen suffering in the world, and they're like, if there was a God, why does this exist?
Right, or life ain't perfect for them. It's not like prayers answered the way I want it to. All that. But what you said, I just want to go back to the recovery. The NA programs, the 12-step programs, is without the way they give me that platform. I don't take that baby step. So what they do is they don't go, here's what God it is for you. They don't even use the word God.
Good.
They use the word higher power.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, it just can't be you. So literally for some people, they're coming in for their first meeting. They're literally at like life's end, right? And they've lost faith in everything. They can't even understand what's happening tomorrow, let alone, hey, you have to have this spiritual, you know what I mean,
awakening.
Foundation, right? But they'll be like, just know that it's not you, and that's the only rule right now. You can pick anything; it just has to be outside for yourself. So I've heard some people, and I mean, I don't exactly agree with this part, but I heard one guy say he was told by his first day, he's like, it can be the group, it can be this room,
yes,
you know what I mean? It can be your community, it could be the light bulb in the corner. It just can't be you, right? And then he soon realized it can't be the light bulb because that light bulbs don't have love, right?
Yeah, right.
But I had to make my higher power in God until I was able to come up with a specific God and higher power in my life. I had to make it my community. I knew that love came from through my wife, through my family, through friends, through people I was meeting. Choose who you hang around with. But, I realized, so for me, when people would be like, how do you explain your higher power, right? Or if I had to explain it to someone who I was sharing maybe with a newcomer trying to help them, I was like, for me, it's the community, it's love, it's positivity right now, right? And so then it was kind of like, just trying to get my head wrapped around it. But
yeah, I love that. And I have this thing
just that baby step. It's not you.
Yeah.
This
is the one thing I love doing to people that say they're atheists. I say, okay, well, what do you believe in that's higher than yourself? And they go, right? Like, because they don't have an answer, and sometimes they'll say nothing, and I'm like, well, and they know instinctually, they know when they say that, they're like, that's fucked up.
Yeah, or the atheists that will say they're atheists and then they'll tell you they have a God. Like I'll be talking with someone and they'll say, "Oh, I'm an atheist. There's no Jesus Christ or there's no whatever, right?" And then they'll be like, I believe in the universe. I'm like, so you believe in something bigger than you?
Power.
That's a higher power,
and that's
right
all
there.
it is. Is like I'm believing in something higher than you, right? And another tool that I use for people that are clients of mine that are atheists is I write out on a piece of paper. I say, your soul is turned over to David Haas, right, for $20. So I put $20 on the table, and I say, okay, just sign that paper and turn your soul over to me. And then they hesitate, right, because they're like, well, fuck. I'm like, yeah, but you don't believe in anything higher. It's like you don't believe that there's a higher self. And then they're like, oh shit. I'm like, that hesitation just proves to you that inside your higher self knows the truth, that it's like, I'm not fucking signing that contract.
Yeah. There's something wrong with doing that.
Yeah,
that's such a good test.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I love it. So let's circle this thing back here. I mean, all real powerful stuff, man. But let's circle this thing back, and we can tie this higher power into this. It's like, you want to become a rock star, you fucking release the music, you're doing all this, you're grinding, and it's just you come to this realization it's not going to pay the bills, right? It's like, so, and then you start a construction company, you're super successful, super talented, killing it, but then COVID happens. This is all recent now. You start working with me, and then all of a sudden you start coming to this realization that music is what you love to do. You've always known that, right? But a shift happens. I don't even know what it was now that I'm thinking about it, but something shifted where you're like, hey, I want this. I think you know what it was. You let go of the outcome. It wasn't about, it was like, I love the process of making music, and I'm going to keep making music for as long as I can. No matter what
people think.
You're not going to, and then eventually music, we know it's already happening for you. Because you're in it. You're in the field of making music, of getting your music heard by other people. You're in the process of it. You're just in it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And because you're in it, opportunities are coming to you, right?
And then just cherry pick those opportunities.
Well,
right?
and they're
Not
coming
be
more.
like,
They're coming more and more. So
Yeah.
like, what do you think were? Let's just talk about like, what do you think were your like limiting beliefs that prevented you from, I guess, pursuing music anymore? Because you kind of had given up on it, had you not? Like you kind of had given up on, having your song heard by millions of people. Would you say that?
Yeah, like I gave up on music 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was so I've been doing music since I was like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See the band at church, and then I joined a band with some of my best friends, and like we still make music.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gave up on it 4 or 5 years ago. And you're just saying, what are some of the limiting beliefs?
Well, you got. I can give them to you if you want. But
yeah. I mean, a lot of it was that blueprint, like it had to be a certain way thing.
Yeah.
My beliefs has always been like a little bit like I could make it, I could. But it was more of like the emotional and negative blocks that were surrounding this whole deal.
Yeah, and those blocks are your beliefs.
Yeah, okay, so my beliefs. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of framing it a little bit different, right? So I thought one of the big ones was I thought that my music, for me to make it, it had to be all about me. So I was self-serving.
Oh, I love that.
You know what I mean? I'm self-serving. It's got to be about my voice. It's got to be about my guitar solo. It's got to be about and I mean, I have a good voice. I know that I can sing and it'll be used. People will use it. And I know I can play great guitar. But I took away that block of it had to be about me. So I just started serving again, right? And be like, where am I needed, right? So I'm at church and they're like, man, they need an electric guitar player. Okay, that's fine. And it's like, I don't need to sing, I'll play kazoo. Like, I'm just here to help you launch your thing, right? And even the way I'm doing my when I'm doing stuff with the band, I'm trying to keep it about the band, right? How about those guys? What's good for everybody? And even with my own stuff, like my Brian Jacques artistry, I'm making damn sure that the video guy and anybody taking pictures or helping me, that their names are rising with me, right? Whereas before, my mentality was like, for me to get my name up here, I had to be on top. But it's actually the opposite. Something I learned when I went to Nashville to play there. I went and played there a couple times, and I went and talked to some industry folks, and they were like, you got to be woven in the fabric.
Wow.
It's not about you. It's like, how many people do you support? Wow. And I was like, whoa, I'm not even vibing like that right now. So I was like totally opposite than my belief system, right? I want everyone to support me, but I grow when I support everybody else.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing to take away from that is that you switch from getting to giving. I mean, that in itself is huge, right?
Yeah.
So I think another, like some of the blocks that you and I have kind of worked through, and is that you're too old. You live in the wrong city. There's not enough opportunity. It has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like, these are just some of the ones that you're still working
Fear
through. Fear of judgment. Yeah.
People pleasing.
Yeah.
People pleasing. Like the idea that whatever I do with my life or my music has to be perfect for everyone around me. It would be like, I wouldn't be making this song because I have to include that person on it, or I was always worried about how everyone else would feel about my actions, that it ended up keeping me in this invisible prison. Yeah. So I was just always trapped inside of like, but then, what if my wife doesn't like it that I take off for, a recording session? Meanwhile, I could ask her and she'd be like, of course, I'm down with that. Yeah. Like, she's the coolest, right? So it was just a lot of that imagination. Our imaginations can be
let's expand on that a little bit, because I think people pleasing is something that a lot of people suffer from, and you can see, like, just right there from that example you gave, how debilitating that can be, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like your fear of letting other people down, fear of what people are going to think of you, So it's like, for you, if you said tomorrow, you know what, I'm closing my construction company and I'm just music, right? What goes through your mind? Like this
what goes through my mind on the part of people pleasing is, what will they say? What
will my wife say?
What will my wife say?
What will my wife's parents say? What will my parents say?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Like, what will society say?
What will my friends say? What does that put anybody out? You know what I mean? Does that hurt anybody? I can rationalize my way through it and then realize all the benefits from being risky and taking action too. But then also, like, fear of failure, fear of judgment.
Yeah.
All falls into
right.
that people pleasing.
Right.
People pleasing, by the way, can I just make a point?
Go.
Is so dangerous.
So
Like
dangerous.
it's so dangerous. Like to the point where it can kill you. Like that's how dangerous it is.
100%.
One of the biggest realizations I had, again, through working my program, my recovery program, is they make us take an inventory, right?
Yeah.
And it's thorough.
It's
thorough. It's like hundreds of questions. It's crazy.
See, I have a system like that where I tell people to make a list of how fucked up they are.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So, but where my addictions took me, just a backstory, is I went through major depressive disorders. I battled depression for 10 years too, and I was actually hospitalized from it several times, right? So usually that means you're suicidal or we need to get you better because you're a risk.
Right.
Anyways, so that's just to paint how bad things were for me, how unhealthy and dangerous my life had become. Fast forwarding that, working through my program and my growth, one of the biggest things that was creating a negative block for my life was my people pleasing. I wouldn't take actions that were healthy for me because I was afraid of being judged, or I was afraid it would put somebody else out. Now, I'm not saying go out there and, be a dick to people, but you have to, obviously, self-preservation is very important, right? Like I got to take that business move, or I got to stand up to that person and say no, so it's healthier for myself, right? Saying no is part of people pleasers don't say no to anything, right? Man, that was so hard. I used to have to be on the phone with my sponsor and be like, I'm about to have a conversation with a customer where I say no to something. And he would be like, this is what you're going to say. And he would guide me through it. And I would call and be like, I can't do that for that price or whatever. And I was just such a people pleaser and so unhealthy, but I didn't have that skill. You know what I mean? I had lost that along the way, probably because of just the fog of war, the addictions, this and that.
Along the way is what I want to talk about more, because I think this is what people are missing, is that anything that you do that is not serving you, addiction, drugs, whatever, people pleasing is one of them. It's definitely not serving you, because when you people please, you might not do what it is you want to do. Let's say pursue music because you're paranoid about how that's gonna affect other people and what they're gonna think of you and all these things. So people pleasing is a mechanism to not feel a certain way. Okay, it's a mechanism that you've created.
Short-term gain, right? Oh, I feel better right now.
Yes, right. So people pleasing is about you avoiding feeling something, right? So probably, and because we've done the work, but for me, people pleasing was about avoiding conflict, right? I didn't want to have conflict with anyone. And I was able to trace that back to my dad, right? He was this guy you had to walk around on eggshells with. So the mechanism that my ego created was, hey, just don't piss him off. Make sure he's always happy, right? And that way I'm not going to get into conflict, or there's not going to be an explosion, right? That I was fearful as shit of, right? So what did I have to do? Oh, what am I trying to avoid feeling by being a people pleaser? I'm trying to avoid the fear. Okay, let me go back and feel the fucking fear. Like that is what people are missing. It's like, because once you feel the emotion fully and you're free of it, like you're really truly free of it, you no longer need the mechanism, right? So still with you, we're still working on reducing that fear and getting you to go back and be free of that fear fully, right? Because once you're fully free of the fear, there won't be a need to call anybody and say, hey, I'm struggling. It's like, you won't need it, right? You can just go through it because you've eliminated what's at the root of it, which is the fear or whatever, the judgment, the unworthiness, I don't know, whatever it would be.
Right.
For you, yeah.
I think that there's still something technical, though, about having someone help you walk through what that sounds like. You need to be taught how to ride the bike, which is pedal forward and then steer like left and steer right. I love it. Yeah. So for sure, we got to get through that feeling and know this ain't going to kill me.
Yeah, it's
not people pleasing, the fear of it. This is not going to kill me. Now reach out to somebody who you want to be, somebody that has something you want in life, and then don't be afraid to ask for help.
No,
say,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
What does this conversation look like, right? I've called, man, over the 4.5 years of like my growth and in my recovery, my life, right? I've picked up the phone, and people don't do this. This is why maybe it's not working for them. I pick up the phone every day or every other day, and I'll be like, when I need to, right? Sometimes I forget. I'm not perfect, right? So it'll be a week or two, but I know I start feeling funky because I'm running things in here again. Yep. But I love just like connecting with someone else and saying, what does this conversation look like, right? Or what does this look like to you? And then they'll be like, No, like their perspective, the observer perspective
Yes.
is always way cleaner.
And that's the
right?
power of coaching or mentorships or whatever it is, because it's like it's hard to read the label from inside the jar. It's like when you're in it, it's hard to see what's really going on. But
Yeah,
when
man.
someone takes a 30,000 foot view, they're like, "Hey, it's this,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh fuck, I didn't even see that," right? You know, so
Yeah.
that's huge. And I'm glad that you brought that up about when I said about the call. Like, you don't need it. You're right. It's like, you created the mechanism. Let's just use people pleasing. You created that mechanism to not feel a certain way. So using my example, I used it to not feel conflict, the fear of conflict. That's what it was. So once I went back and eliminated that fear, right? You know, then, and I was, so I became aware of it. That's step one. I released it, step two. But step three is what you're talking about with calling people. You need to develop new programs, new beliefs, new patterns, right? And in order to do that, you have to usually need the help of somebody else that's actually already done it, right? So
It helps.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's not just about being free of the emotion that you're avoiding feeling. It's also about, you've developed these patterns over the course of your entire life. You know, for me, it's like 40 something, 35 years, let's say, I've developed these patterns, and now I have to put new patterns into place. So I'm up against that habitual, belief system pattern, the thing that I've always done, which was people pleasing. So I still catch myself to this day, getting into people please. It happened to me fucking yesterday, for Christ's sakes. One of my great friends is like, he's so paranoid of COVID, and I'm like, stop watching the fucking news, right? Like, he's like he watches the news every day, and I'm like, just stop, because that fear, and I can see it, that fear is debilitating him. He's just not living his life. But I felt myself, that's what I was saying in my mind, right? I wasn't saying that to him, right? I was just like, he was telling me about how we got to wear masks and we got to do all these things. And I'm not going to get into this COVID thing, but like, and I'm just saying, I was just like, kind of like nodding, and I'm like, this isn't who I am. I'm fucking people pleasing. And because I look up to this guy, right? So it's like, I'm not going to talk down to this guy. But then later I was like, man, there I go again. I thought I was free of this, right? Yeah. And, so it's like, it is this replaying and putting in the new habits. But if you can eliminate the root emotion, holy shit, you've made a leap.
That's the biggest. That's the biggest part of it. Let's say half or more, right? And I think a big part of my message is reaching out, becoming connected. They say you are as successful as the 4 or 5 people you hang around with, right? I love that because it reminds me to go pick good friends, right? Yeah. It reminds me that ask if it sounds silly. What does a healthy conversation look like? Yeah. What is this going to look like if it's letting people in, being super vulnerable, and letting people kind of be like a little mind mechanic in there, and just like go, that totally makes sense.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love that, man. All right, let's wrap it up there. But where can they find you? Like, I know you just released a new single called "Brand New Day," which is awesome. Like, great song. So how can they find you? Where can they, like, Instagram, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I want this song "Brand New Day," the one I'm releasing, to be on people's playlists, right? Like in their household, like song. Yeah. So go to Spotify, go to Apple Music, iTunes, Google Play, and then put B Jacques. So BJOX, and then I'm gonna come up on there. Or if you put B Jacques Brand New Day, the song will be there. Yeah. And then connect with the socials. What's that?
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt, but tell me about Brand New Day though, really quick. Like what's that song about? Because this is what you've made the shift from. Before the shift was like, what song can I make to get? But now you're like, what song can I make to give? And I think the message in this song is like super powerful.
Yeah, so the message in Brand New Day is like that saying, like, hey, it's a brand new day. Like, just like, let that go. Let that be in the past. Yeah. It was actually a saying that was my mom used to say, and I think my dad used to say it too growing up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, family things happen, right? And it's like, it's a brand new day. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was a vibe. Like, oh, okay. Like, that's whatever happened yesterday. It doesn't need to be a part of today, right? So, and then I mean, also, I think that we don't realize how hellish or imperfect people's lives really are. Like most people can relate to the fact that things ain't perfect. Yeah. Things can be quite dark at times. Mm-hmm. So that idea of Brand New Day, it just sends a good vibe of, hey, that happened, but we can move on. Yeah, and it touches on the dark days, right? It touches on.
Right, and I think just like I do, like some of those dark days will be your biggest. I look back at some of the most terrible things that happened to me, and they were like some of the greatest things that ever happened to me. Of course, yeah, right. So it's like not just about the song is not just about pushing the past away. It's about, hey, this happened. Let me feel the emotions. Let me be free of it.
Yeah.
But now I have a brand new day to create more opportunity to do whatever it is I want to do, right? So and that's why I love this song. So sorry I interrupted you about the social. What's the social?
No, that's okay. The socials is right now it's Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
Type in B Jacques.
Yeah.
You know,
BJOX.
BJOX,
Yeah.
right? And you'll find me on there, or you can just search my personal profile right now, Brian Jacques. That's cool too.
Yeah, definitely.
Just connect,
and you're also you're also the music coordinator or whatever that is at the church.
Oh, I wouldn't say that yet.
Okay, whatever it is
there's been some shifts in and whatnot at church, and you know it just keeps kind of going that they're asking me to do more and more.
Yeah,
so the pastor there and the leadership have asked me to lead some Sundays when we come back and we open back up. And they've already been using me for the online church services.
And what church is that, though?
It's Exchange Church Windsor.
Yeah.
So if you just Google Exchange Church Windsor, our Sunday mornings are at Silver City.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So cool. So, and there's like families showing up, there's kids, adults, and we get into a theater and you know what I mean? We worship, we have a good time, we love, and then the pastor says a good word that's like relatable. So it's good, man. And they're asking me to like help with the music like more and more, and I'm like, this is such a good avenue. Like I love this. Yeah.
So Brian, first of all, man, thanks for coming on the podcast. Like, I mean, you delivered so much value there. I think people are going to get a lot from it. But we also have a treat because you brought your guitar. Yeah. And Brian's going to play his brand new single right here on the podcast. So you want to stick around and listen to it. But also, I highly encourage you to, support this guy. He's coming from a place of love and wanting to help people. And then there's nothing more powerful than that. So just make sure you download that song, Brand New Day. But Brian's going to play it right now for us.
We're going to try it. We're going to set up we're going to set the mic up a little different and do a sound check.
I love it. All right. Cool.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. Here's Brand New Day. I'm giving this a shot. Here we go. When Tommy was growing up, he was bullied and abused. People taking their share of him, always getting the boots. But now he's getting older, and now he's getting stronger. He says, I'm moving on, I don't care no longer. Everybody gets down once in a while. Leave it in the past and give me a smile now, 'cause it's a brand new day. Kicking and screaming will do you no good. I know you think you're understood, but you gotta walk away, yeah. Just walk away, it's a brand new day. Happy feelings come around me. You know I get those dirty blues. Don't say a word, I know you get them too. See, we all have hard times that are full of pain. Dark nights and dark days don't discriminate. And worrying about the small things will only bring you down. Keep your head up high and your feet on the ground. Trade your old ways for new ways and old days for new days. Please remember you are not alone. Everybody gets down once in a while. Leave it in the past and give me a smile now, 'cause it's a brand new day. Kicking and screaming will do you no good. I know you think you're understood, but you gotta walk away, yeah. Just walk away, it's a brand new day. Down once in a while. Leave it in the past and give me a smile now, 'cause it's a brand new day. Kicking and screaming will do you no good. I know you think you're understood, but now you gotta walk away, 'cause it's a brand new day.
fucking good, brother. So good, man. Oh, man.
I love that song. I wrote that when I was 23 or 22, and I never had the guts to release it.
Oh, my God. So good.
Here, baby.
You can check out all Brian's music. Check him out on social platform, Bjox, BJOX. Make sure you go download that song, man. Put it on your playlist. Put it on your gym list. Like, I was just thinking to myself, running to that song.
Let's balance that track and submit that as an acoustic single.
Oh, yeah. I loved it, man. I loved it. So good. So thanks for being on the podcast, man. I think you offered a ton of value. And make sure you go download Brand New Day.